Grounds Academy. Today, I'm going to be going over some community resources for those that are interested in using Fantasy Grounds, or if you're really new, or maybe you have been playing a while and didn't realize that some of these things existed. So, the first things first is we're going to take a look at the software. Typically, when you choose a virtual tabletop, you would want to be able to learn a little bit about it before you get into it. And I think that's kind of a thing that will depend on the individual and what your needs are. There are other solutions to Fantasy Grounds. They all offer pluses and minuses depending on what you're trying to do with it. Fantasy Grounds is pretty much self-contained, and it has some limitations and also some features that stand out. One of the things I can say up front is that Fantasy Grounds does offer a way to play without being online. So if you were going to play face-to-face, you could use Fantasy Grounds on a laptop and use it as kind of like your library. And if you have electricity and such, you can plug into a television or a projector and use that as your library and your map and all those sort of things. However, it does allow online play, and those kinds of things are kind of with mixed results depending on your computer and your network and those sort of things. So it really depends on what your needs are and what your capabilities are, and also what you're willing to spend time on. So first things first is when you first install the program, it's going to ask you, in most cases, depending on your system, if you will allow Fantasy Grounds to go through your firewall, and that's an important aspect. So if you're a player and you forget that step, or perhaps it doesn't pop up, that will cause an issue later on where you might not be able to connect to another table if you're going to play a game. So that is something that comes up occasionally. The other issues may be other related network issues, or perhaps your GM is kind of new and they're shoving a lot of content at you or whatever. But usually that's the culprit, is the data is blocked between Fantasy Grounds, the host, and the player. So we're going to talk about here is this quick start guide. So there are links directly in the front page here. So you don't have to go searching online for everything. Everything's kind of right here. So if you click on this quick search, the starting guide, it will bring you to the main page, which just gives you kind of an overall of what's happening. And then you have all of these links here that will take you to different places that will be helpful for resources. You also have the forums. So the forums is the official place where you can report things, you can share things, you can do all kinds of things in the forum. So if I click on forums, you do have to be signed in, by the way. So if you are a new user, you do have to make an account. And you also have to make one for Fantasy Grounds. So if you're going to start Fantasy Grounds for the first time and you haven't done anything with it yet, you have to be connected to the server, and you do that by using the same credentials as you would with the software. So in other words, if you go into settings and you bring up your settings for Fantasy Grounds, on the back end, you'll have your password. If you have a license key, you'd put that in there. You'd click login and then save. So that gets you into the actual application. Also, you can link your account if you have Steam or Paizo. There's an advanced section where you can play around with what directories you're in. I don't think, unless you're need to, you shouldn't mess around with these too much, because if you don't have them in the default folders, that can cause issues later on. And for troubleshooting, you can gather logs, you can clear your vault, which may be a troubleshooting step. You can force an app update, you can clear settings. There's all kinds of things you can do. But the basics here is that you have to be logged into the software and your password has to be in. So that is something that's required. And the same password and the same issue with the website. So you have to be logged into the website. But up here in the forums, you got a different section. So this top section, the City Hall, is generally where they announce things. So if there's changes coming up or anything big, usually that's in the City Hall. The other more important place here is the House of Healing. So if you're having issues with Fantasy Grounds, you can go in here to the House of Healing and create a thread and post whatever your issue is. Make sure to include the rule set, if you're going to be using extensions, and whether you're a player or a GM, and the other part of it is what operating system. If you get that out of the way ahead of time, that really cuts down on the amount of time it takes to help you. The other thing is if you want to subscribe to a thread, so if let's just say this was my thread, now what will happen is that I will take and you can say you can like the thread, and you can also go to thread tools and you can subscribe. So what will happen is if you have your email attached to this, it will send you an email if anything has been updated on that particular thread that you subscribe to. So the forums are kind of old, but they do work, and if you use them as they're presented, they're not too bad. So you have other places for support, and if you ever kind of want to know what they're working on, if you go to the laboratory, quite often they'll start here. So when they post something that's getting ready to be released, like within the next couple weeks or month, they'll usually post that in here. And that gives you kind of an idea of what's coming up. They don't really publish a roadmap because it always shifts and changes what they're going to be working on. So that's one of their things is they don't post things. And if you want to know when a game's coming out, it's kind of difficult to predict that because it's got to go through QA, it's got to be checked, those sort of things. So these are the sort of things you'll come up against, when you're using Fantasy Grounds and when you're interacting with the community. The other thing is looking for games. So there is a Fantasy Grounds Game Days, which is something that is sponsored by Smiteworks. It's once a month, and you can also interact with this on the Discord website. There are some other things, but the looking for group or looking for games is a place where you can post games and you can sign up for games. These do fill up quickly, so don't get discouraged. Just keep keeping an eye on it. And they also have a one-shot games area and paid games. So if you're looking for games, that's one resource for that. Then they have game systems for specific rule sets and different variations of it. So if you're into World of Darkness, there's a thread for that. If you are into one of the other smaller rule sets or ones that are not as visible, they're all down here in the other game systems. One of my particulars is Alien. I like that. And I like Shadow of the Demon Lord, so I have a few in here that I subscribe to. Down on the bottom are some older threads, but they're still useful. There's the Armory, where you can kind of look at what other people are working on. There's a workshop where you can share that. And then there's a gallery where people have pasted pictures and screenshots. And there is a very old thread here for Fantasy Grounds Classic for some of you, there might be a few of you out there that still use Classic. So that's essentially the website. Up here on top is actually the most useful. So if you go back to the home and you come up here, there's the forums link. You use this drop down. There's a store link. So you got shopping. You can do bundle shopping, the art subscription, Fantasy Grounds Forge, personalized suggestions. That's based off of the content you already owned. And then your cart. And if you ever want to get a license key or try to remember what you ordered, you can come into the order history. Also, there's direct links to the Paizo account synchronization and for Steam. And then if you get a third-party key from like a Kickstarter or one of the partners from Fantasy Grounds, that'll be where you enter that. Also, there's this drop-down menu for help. So there's a FAQ, Discord server, subscription help, contact support. There's some installation manual stuff that goes to the Atlassian guide. There's an affiliate link, so if you want to help market Fantasy Grounds, you can sign up for that. You get 1% if you're an affiliate of another affiliate. You get 5% if it's a direct sale from your links. Also, very important, sign up for the newsletter. They don't spam you too much. You might get 1 or 2 of those a week at the most, and they usually tell you about upcoming sales, all kinds of events if there are any. They have contests occasionally. And if you're new to Fantasy Grounds, you're worried about the cost. Quite often, they have like a seasonal sale, like in the summer and the winter. It's a pretty big discount. And then every week there's sales. So you don't have to buy everything at once and come out of pocket if the expense is too much for you. The next thing is on the store itself. When you go to shop for something, if you are someone who has all the content, or maybe you have a bunch of content, it might be something that you'll want to keep track of in regards to bundles. So if you can go to a bundle and then it'll show you what stuff you've purchased already. And then you also have these individual pieces here that you can also buy and subscribe to. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing. Like they just re-released the Tome of Horrors in 2020. They just got it in Fantasy Grounds now, but this is an updated version. And then you have all of these different sales that are going on this page here. Usually it's on the front, 1 or 2 pages. And then if you want to navigate between different rule sets, this one is for the older Pathfinder 3.5. And then you have different filters that you can use here in the search menu. This search menu can be a little confusing at first, but when you filter by genre, 5e compatible is normally not D&D. So that's everything but D&D. So that can be Kobold Press, those sort of things. If you really want D&D, you select D&D 5th edition. There has been some confusion on that in the last couple months. And one of the things you have to remember is there's a lot of different variations of D&D. And then there's also third party and then the direct stuff. So that's why they separate it out like that. There's people using 5e compatible searching for actual D&D stuff, and that doesn't work very well. So then you have also a filter that has missing line of sight or has line of sight. So quite often when you're looking at content, you'll see this little symbol that says LOS. That means that if there's any maps on there to be had, the line of sight has been added automatically. There are a few supplements and detailed adventures out there that don't have any maps. They weren't provided. They weren't designed that way. So you'll have to come up with your own. But in most cases, they're going to be adapted. And if they're older, I know Smiteworks has an initiative right now to go back and update or to put those in if possible. So this is just kind of some of the things to expect on the store end of it. And a lot of times when you have a discount coming to you, it won't show until you put it in the basket. So let me see if I can find something that I can possibly buy that I haven't purchased already. So it's kind of difficult because I have a ton of stuff. So I want to see if there's a bundle item here that I haven't. So these are the Symborum ones are on sale. That's why this slash is here. So it's like $6 off. So that's pretty good deal. So if I wanted to, I could buy like this Pathfinder 2. So it's on sale right now, and if I click buy, it will go into my cart. I'll get a little message up here that says, okay, your shopping cart's been updated. So if I click on the cart, I can go into the cart itself, and this is generally where the discounts are shown. So I'm getting a $5 discount because it's already on sale, but if I already own the book and I have my store synchronized from Paizo to Fantasy Grounds and Fantasy Grounds to Paizo, I'd probably get an additional discount on top of that. So this is already on sale as it is, but when you get a sale or a discount or a bundle price, generally it doesn't show up until you put it in the cart. Once you see the cart, then you'll see the discount. The other thing you can do is sometimes if you want to find out what you qualify for discounts, there's a personalized suggestion here where you can go in there and you can take a look at some things that you don't own yet. And these are things that you can, it suggests based off of what you've already purchased. So I don't own this stuff, so it's going to show it to me. Sometimes it'll show you the eligible discounts if you go to the right section. So if you go to store, and I believe it's in the shop, and you can select where it's going to show you bundle discounts or things that you can, things that you can get discounts on based off of your sales and your whatever you purchased before. So there's that. There's something that I just found out recently, which I didn't know about, but if you go to the store and you go to the Fantasy Grounds Forge, which is basically the DLC for the community, there is a search filter here. I think they're going to update this, but if you drop this down, you can click on Show Owned. So this has been plaguing me since this store came out. I didn't know this was there, but essentially this will allow you to see stuff even if you own it. Because by default, it used to be this where you didn't see it and it wouldn't show up in the screen. The only way at that point you would be able to see it is if you went to your inventory and then you go through this list of content, which isn't very fun because there's no search here. So I was doing that the whole time, like trying to go through all my inventory so I could suggest something to another user. So that's just a thing that, you have to basically decide if that's, something that you want to use or not. And this is also where you manage these things. So if you don't want these to show up in your list when you start up Fantasy Grounds, you can disable and hide them. and they will no longer be part of it. And if you update Fantasy Grounds, it'll usually remove the extension if that's what it is. So this is also something I just learned today. I mean, I've been using this for a while, and I didn't realize that that was there. So if you go to the shop, the front page, and if you're a user and you have a bunch of stuff already, use the search filters and click on this show owned, and it will show everything that you have. It won't hide it in your Wow, I did all that talking. Wow. Yeah, that's great. I don't even know how that got taken, but I'm going to go ahead and go back and start over because that was a freaking nightmare. I'm going to try that again. Maybe I'll do it again. I don't have the time to go back and redo the video, but basically, I was trying to show where all of the different resources were. I don't know how that got muted, but it did, and maybe it was some shortcuts on my keyboard. Who knows? But I'll try that again. But essentially, I was trying to give out some resources, and I was showing you like where you can go to basically get help, where you can go to find games, and where you can go to get resources for using the Fantasy Grounds platform.